Hey friends, this is the Miss Wolfie from our Half Acre Homestead, and today I'm making my grandkitties a quilt. You heard me correctly, I'm making a cat quilt. Now what's going to make this so special is that, well, let's just say this is what you're going to need. You're going to need some fresh, natural, organic catnip. You can do this for dogs too, but this is for my cats. Cat fabric, lining, and I've got this beautiful brown velveteen that I've had forever. And I think I'm just going to use that as the back. Let's get started. Now, what I've got here are these, I showed you these kitty cat pieces of fabric. And I'm going to just kind of roughly put it into a couple of piles. So that, because I know there's doubles in here. And these are all roughly 5.5 inches each. So I'm going to, let's just start sewing these together. So I'm going to do 6 across and 6 down. Now, y'all may think I'm silly making a quilt for my son's cats, but this right now is, you know, before you have children, you should have pets. Why? Because it teaches you how to look after things. But start out with a plant, right? I have missed this sewing machine. This was the very first sewing machine. Not this one, but this model. This exact model was the very first sewing machine I ever had. Let's just do this. I'm not even pinning these, folks. This is how simple this is. Okay. They said 2 feet by 2 feet would be perfect. So this is 21 inches. So we are going to go 6 to 6 after all. See, I get too fussy, folks. I really get too fussy with fabric choices and how colors get laid out and all that weird stuff. But it doesn't mean I can't just sew these all together. The first thing I do is I start going, okay, we got the size, and then we got how many. Then you decide, okay, you've got doubles, you don't want them to be side by side. After that, I start getting fussy about color placement. Now, these cats are boy cats, but I'm pretty sure they don't give a care about color. My friend sent me this, isn't that beautiful? And we're going to start pinning this together. We want to make sure the seams line up. These are supposed to be square, but pinning, what this does is if you have a square that's a little bit off, you're going to be able to you're lining it up with the seams so that you don't have one row longer than the other. Every row after that should be pretty easy to line up because we can either put it on either side, either end. But I just wanted to make sure that my colors and patterns weren't repeating themselves next to each other in this row. Now you always pin your pins this way so that the needle goes over them. If you pin them lengthwise, you're going to break your needle on them because there's a better chance they'll hit. So now when you sew the rows together, make sure that you reverse over every seam. This is for cats, remember? They're going to give it a working over. So every time we go over a seam, we backspace, we reverse over it, so it gets sewn twice. Oops. And reverse over the end. We just want to make sure that when the cats start roughhousing, the weaker points, like the joints, are going to be nice and solid. Okay. All right, I'm going to get the other 4 rows sewn and put on, and then we'll be back. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to build our quilt. Now, I'm doing this in a specific way for a reason, because I have an idea about how I want this to go. Now, let's see how big this is. This is our brown velveteen. Let's see about, let's see how big our kitty cat quilt is. All right, it doesn't have to be a lot of padding. It's not a bed, it is a quilt. However, saying that, there's a reason I'm lining it. Even though they're not gonna use it as a blanket, they're gonna use it kind of as a play mat. This is what's going to let the cats know it's theirs. Now, I don't want them destroying it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to very, very gently just scatter a little bit of catnip in the lining. This way they will know that this is theirs, right? I'm just going to lay their top over it like this. And then we're going to iron it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you don't like to iron, don't take up quilting. All right, first things first, I want to pin down these through all 3 layers. But I just want to do it so that I can cut around. And I'm not going to hand quilt this, and I'm not going to tie it. I'm just going to run it through the sewing machine, folks. Okay, so this is the best angle I can give you. And now, let's move my T. I'm going to really carefully sew across each corner. We'll take our corner pin out, and then we'll do the same on each corner. Now this is a way of quilting a small quilt with your machine, but I mean, again, this is a cat quilt, so this is why I'm actually doing it kind of in this format. Now, you can do this with, if you really want this to be perfect, you could tape this, crisscross tape it with masking tape and sew on the outsides of the masking tape. I'm just don't think it's necessary, that's all. Using the seams, get it back there, of the blocks, I'm now going to sew right down the center. Not quite on the seam. I'm going to use the side of my presser foot as a guide. This is also a good project if you just want to learn how to do a basic fast quilt without expecting much. For instance, I just sewed that in a pucker, but that's okay. So you can see on the back the corners and the stripes. Now I'm just going to sew the seams down in the other direction. Get back here, okay. Alrighty. Now, alright, so now what we're going to do See the nice, well, look at all the threads, but see the nice pattern on the back? But you can see that it has been sewn in nice pockets and the corners are sewed down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bind it. We're going to roll this over to the edge, and then we're going to roll it again, and we're going to pin it. Right? And then we're going to sew along the bottom seam so that we know it is pinching down on the edge of the quilt. Now, corner, it's not going to be that big a deal. I'm going to cut the corner off like this. Just like that. See that? I just cut the tip off of it. And I'm going to roll that in like that. And then, of course, down. Just like that. Now, before I go down the edge, see how I've made my corner here? I'm just going to sew, if I can, if it will allow me, because it's pretty thick. I'll pull this pin out. Right down to the edge like that. I'm going to lift my presser foot. I'm going to turn this, and then again I'm going to sew right down the edge. Okay, so I'm just about finished with this binding, but I'm going to go around again because this is, you know, it's a kitty cat quilt, folks. It's going to get tussled with, I'm hoping. So we just want to make sure that everything works as it should. And having sewn this the way they are, even when it gets washed, the catnip they will already love their blanket. Little bit of catnip just to ensure that they are gonna love it. And there it is, a catnip quilt, guaranteed to please the cat in your life. Even though these cats aren't in my life, they need to know who I am, the granny. This is the Miss Wolfie from our half-acre homestead saying, if you gotta make a gift for a cat, make it count. Make a catnip quilt. It's almost too devious, isn't it? Take care, God bless.